Welcome to Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning. Our very special guest today is Erin Byrne, who is an advocate for the disabled, but she's also a teacher and a singer and a tutor. Welcome to Forum 360, my dear friend Erin Byrne.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, I have to ask you, for the people in our audience who are not aware that you are also a person with disability, would you talk about how your life has evolved to you becoming an advocate for people with disabilities?
I've had a disability since birth, basically. And I've had a lot of examples set by my family, really. So as far as advocacy, which I'm very passionate about now, it started really because I had powerful family supports and people who encouraged me to have the same expectations and as everyone else, and that I had the same level of potential and that I could achieve just like everyone else.
And you have not just survived yourself and live independently, and you sing and you teach, but you also tutor others who have disabilities to be able to be successful, like tutoring Braille. And how did that come about?
When I was looking around for work, I discovered that I really loved to tutor, basically teach people. It was a very special kind of thing to be able to talk to people and help them learn a new skill. And naturally, in that skill set, I, read and write Braille. Initially, when I was approached, there was a student in one of the local school districts they were looking for Braille tutoring for him, and I had been approached, and so I did that for a while, and I really got to love it because Braille literacy is very important to me. Not all blind people do read Braille, and I would like to see Braille literacy increase. So it came from that angle as well. And I work pretty closely as I'm a member of the Philomathian Society of the Blind in Canton.
Well, now, first of all, what is the Philomathian Society, please?
They are a local organization that has been around, my goodness, since the 20s. And they've done like outreach and assistance for the blind of Canton, Ohio. And they are able to talk to blind people and their families, and they are able to assist as far as getting access to books, technology, and basically just support. If people are experiencing vision loss and they need some kind of assistance and just support in being able to cope and deal with that, and to realize that their lives can still be enriched.
Well, you do more than just cope and deal. You're really out there doing wonderful things. Tell us about the place that you work at Beyond Our Boundaries.
At Beyond Our Boundaries, I do something very fun there. I teach a couple times a month. I go in and they have a day program once, every Wednesday, where they talk about careers and sometimes current events. And at the moment, we are working with the clients on computer skills. So the class is based around like a jobs topic, for example, but we'll use the computers and the internet as part of the education platform. And so I have fun being able to find some great web content for people to read, and then we discuss it and talk about it together.
I want to talk more about technological advances for folks with disabled, but before we do that, I know you also work with adults with developmental disabilities. Could you first of all talk about what are developmental disabilities?
Developmental disabilities can actually span, from physical disabilities to intellectual challenges. In a lot of cases, I work with people with some intellectual disabilities.
So they may have also learning issues.
Learning issues, basically.
And what are some of the things that you do with folks with developmental disabilities?
Well, I try to bring into the learning the same kinds of topics that might interest you and I, or say careers or history or arts and crafting. But I simply try to gauge where on a level, you know, they are, and I gear the content so that it is in a way and a mode that they can understand and relate.
Now, but again, before we get into technological advances, one of the things that I've heard you speak about is how people who do not have disabilities need to have greater sensitivity to folks with disabilities and to act like they're more concerned about what the abilities are rather than the disabilities are. Could you talk about that for a while?
Yes, to begin with, I'd like to say that I think the attitudes of people still need to change significantly. For as many gains as we've had in the technology and accessibility, I see a lot of situations where people simply don't know what to do, they don't know how to act. So the best way to put it is that I would, rather than saying people should be sensitive toward people with disabilities, I want them to be comfortable with. I don't want them to be scared of people with disabilities. I'd like them to see the person first, to see somebody that they could have a conversation with and relate to, just like anybody else.
Well, I'd like our audience to see you. And I know that you are a wonderful singer, and I'm hoping I can talk you into maybe sharing a song with our audience. How about a folk song?
Yeah, I love folk music a lot. One of the favorite ones that I've done, it's kind of like called The Water is Wide. Let me see if I can do a verse for you.
Would you mind? Thank you so much.
The water is wide, I cannot get o'er, neither have I wings to fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and both shall row, my love and I.
Oh, Erin, that's beautiful. I love listening to you sing. I
Well,
want
thank you.
I want to talk about the fact that you give concerts all over the place. You give for many years at many different places. It's you're an extremely talented person, but more than music. Now I'm going to switch subjects on you just because I'm
Perfect,
a
yeah.
cranky old lady. But I know one of the things you do is cook and show other people to cook. How difficult is that for someone who has with blindness and other restrictions? What are the challenges for you in cooking?
The pros and cons.
The pros and cons.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's less challenging than I thought. The main thing that I had to learn not to do is be afraid. When I first started writing on my blog, we'll get to that.
Yes.
But the first thing that I said was, don't be afraid. You know, we know that when we go into the kitchen and start dealing with knives and hot pans, that there is a risk we're going to get burnt or cut. You know, it happens. You be prepared for that. But when you're willing to be safe and know your appliances and not be afraid, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more fun. Beyond that, it's actually been quite easy for me to cook because I have found a lot of appliances that are very convenient, that are very safe. You know, for example, I've learned that you can do a lot of things in a microwave. Where I am at in my living space, I don't really like using the range stove top. And I cook for one a lot. If I'm going out, I just make an individual serving. So I'll just use a toaster oven and bake a miniature portion of something I want. And as far as safety, you know, there are ways in appliances that are keeping an eye out for that, for an audience that wants safe. So, for example, I have a can opener that when you turn it and open your peaches or your tuna or whatever, that it has a mechanism that makes that lid when it comes off not sharp.
So tell me, I know that you have a cooking blog. Tell me about your cooking blog.
Well, I love to write, and for fun, a couple years ago, I said, I need to do something because this was a hobby that I really got obsessed with, cooking.
What's your blog address?
And the web address is https Erin's Cooking in the Dark. That's ERINS COOKING.
Erin's Cooking in the Dark.
In the Dark.
Yes.
.wordpress.com. And a couple years ago, I started writing down things that I was doing to practice and be a better cook, and recipes that I liked. And it gave me practice just writing and talking about something I really liked and sharing how fun that was. And I'm also hoping that if other people see that and if other blind people want to maybe try something new, that they'll be encouraged to do that. Because I don't know, I like good food. I like cooking and I like eating it.
What's the reaction you get to your blog?
People have enjoyed the recipes. I have gotten, a lot of encouragement from my family. They think it's a great thing. I've had people say, I have never imagined that you could do this. Although to me, it's very possible. But so I guess people are having fun learning to cook something they maybe didn't think of before, but they're also getting a different perspective than before.
Well, you're always opening people up to different perspectives and different focuses about abilities. What are the things you want people to know about people with challenges?
They want to be treated like equals and people first. It's important that we're aware of the challenges, and it's important that we have a sensitivity to them. But what's important also is that they have hobbies and likes and dislikes and aspirations and goals and wants and needs just like everybody else. And they want that kind of understanding. They don't want the disability, whatever it is, a blindness or the wheelchair or the whatever, to supersede the person that they are.
That's so critical. By the way, reminding our audience, this is Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning. Our special guest today is Erin Byrne, who is an individual who is a teacher and an advocate for folks with disability, also a singer and a tutor. Erin, again, I'm so happy to have you on this show.
Thank you so much.
Well, I said we would talk later about technological advances for folks with disabilities. Could you talk about some of the things people may not be aware of that are assistive?
Things that have really benefited, especially for me as a blind individual, have been the advances in text-to-speech technology. That basically means that when I turn on my computer, there's a program that talks to me that will announce the content, what's being said on my screen. And also, for example, I just got an iPhone, and I love the Apple products. The voice-over accessibility speech program is built right into the phone.
We just got 3 more contributions to the show. Thank you. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Explain that, please.
It means when I use my phone, even though it's a touch screen, this is what I find incredible. Even though it's a touch screen, I can gesture and tap in a certain way, and the screen content will be announced to me. So I can make a phone call, check my email, look at Facebook. I can even send messages because there's a function that allows me to press, you press something right by the space bar and you can dictate a message right into the phone. And so what I like about the technology experience is that it has enabled me to have the same access to information as my colleagues and peers. And so I feel like in a lot of ways I'm in a more equal place than, say, even 20 years ago. I can communicate with anybody anywhere the same as everyone else. I can plan a lesson. I can get the appropriate paperwork if I need to, do something, like vote or get a handicap sticker or request a book from the library. And I can do that independently, whereas in the past that might have been a challenge.
Even such simple things as setting an appointment or setting an
Yes.
alarm can all be done by voice instruction.
Yes.
It's kind of like a Star Trek episode.
It almost feels like that. I mean, some of the stuff that might have been called science fiction, earlier, now we're doing it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there are so many things. Now, have you gotten into the technology involved with visual recognition technology yet? Or is that something that's on the horizon for you to start exploring?
I've not really found a want or a need to do anything with like eyes or sight recognition. The thing that's really interested me, though, is this talk about self-driving cars,
Right.
which I hope that they are made safely. But I would love the opportunity to have the same ease of transportation as the general public. I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers that I have. It's not communication. It's not that I don't have eyesight. It's the transportation.
Right. And they just tested a self-driving vehicle in Pittsburgh not that long ago, within the last 3 or 4 months. So hopefully.
I mean, I'd like to see them made safe. Obviously. But
So-
if that were an option, I'd explore it.
So what's next for you? What are the kinds of projects that you're working on, or the kind of groups that you're assisting?
I would like to always keep tutoring if I can, because it's something that I've really enjoyed and gotten a lot of reward from. I think I'll always make music. As per writing and blogging, I'd like to maybe expand that and go from just cooking to talking more about bigger life issues, disability issues, so that I can get out there to an audience that, this is my life perspective, but it's not so different from what you experience.
What things that you do when people have a much more negative attitude? You have such a positive attitude and always have, but what are the things that you say and do with folks who may have even less disabilities than you and yet aren't as upbeat or don't quite know how to handle the challenges that they may face?
Well, I tell people that it's their choice. We can decide how happy or not we want to be. I had a voice teacher a long time ago. One of his favorite quotes was, "Misery is optional." He also, when I went into audition for, his studying in his studio, he said, the one rule in here is that we don't do can't.
We don't do can't.
We don't always, we have challenges. We may not always do something well, but we don't ever say can't. And so I tell people that to really think about all the things that they are able to do. The choice is theirs, and also that part of the reason why I feel like I am where I am at is because identity-wise, I don't identify as disabled. This is the best way. I was trying to talk to my sister about this. I said, you have to understand, I don't even identify as disabled. That's not part of my, when I'm just going about my day, that's not something that pops in my head. I'm in a chair, yes. I don't see, yes. I've accommodated that as much as I'm able. But really, I'm a person first. I'm a woman. I'm a teacher, a musician. I am a reader, and I cook, and that's what comes first for me. And so I think that's why so when I talk to people, I say, think about you first.
Who are the people in your life who have been the most inspirational?
I'd say this is going to sound kind of funny, but my mother.
Doesn't sound funny. It sounds good.
It's wonderful to me that she has been such a strong, giving person, and with so many talents and gifts, and with such fortitude.
Tell me about your family. You grew up in Canton?
I grew up in Canton, but my family actually came from Wisconsin. So I'm the baby, and I was the only one born in Ohio.
Okay.
But having said that, we've always visited the family growing up. I have a very large extended family, and so that was a great support. We've always had a very tight-knit extended family, and they've always been a wonderful support for me and inspiration.
You have one sister?
I have one sister and two brothers. I'm the youngest of four.
And you were the baby of the family?
Mm-hmm. My older brother, my oldest brother, also has the same disability as I do. He lives in Wisconsin. And so but we've both felt like that's not but primarily that's not who we want to be first, is the disability.
So when you talk about the concept of disability, it reminds me of my son who was at a restaurant recently, and some lady was being accosted by some large guy, and my son stood up to get between the middle of between the bad guy and the gal, and the man immediately warned my son to get away or he'd make him disabled, and my son picked up his cane, shook at him and said, "Too late."
Oh my goodness.
But I must say, the people at the restaurant sort of surrounded them, and it was his crew. There was no problem, but the focus on what you see as who's disabled or not is certainly in the mind of the beholder sometimes.
Absolutely.
So you get involved with the Philomathan Society. You were talking about that. Tell me a little bit more. Do they have any fundraisers or anything?
Every August they do have a rummage sale. They're part of the Lincoln Highway Byway sale that goes on, and so they have a summer rummage sale. It's pretty fun.
So if someone wanted to donate something to that, they could just look up the Philomathan Society on the internet or in the phone book and get things to them?
Yes, they could.
Okay, and how many years have you been involved with that?
I've been a member of Philomathan for several, I'd say about 6 years now. Since I came back to the area after I came out of grad school, I wanted to get involved, see what they were doing, and help out in any way I could. So
we haven't talked about your graduate school experience. Would you discuss it a little bit?
I went to Kent State University. I got a master's in voice. I wanted to study a certain kind of classical music called art song, and there was that's music that's generally like set to poetry. It's sung for smaller groups. There was a teacher there at that time I wanted to study with, so I did that, and I enjoyed that. I also had a very good group of friends there at the time. Well,
speaking about your experience at Kent State in school and teaching, young people must come to you from time to time and ask you for advice both as to how to be more effective as a person with disabilities, or to how to be more effective with individuals with disabilities. What advice do you have for children who may come to you, young people?
For the people that are, especially young people, people with disabilities, you need to speak for yourself and learn to be your own advocate.
Your own best friend.
Your own best friend. When you want or have a need, don't be afraid to speak up and say what is needed. Don't be afraid to be your own advocate, so that you can have the best experience. For other people, I would say, don't be afraid. For young people, I would love it if more young people were meeting people with disabilities and having that experience and having those interactions, so that they didn't grow up and have that, oh, I don't know what to do, this person's different.
And if someone had some questions, they could contact you through your blog if they were having difficulties, whatnot, or felt that they needed to have just a little extra advice.
Oh, they could. I mean, I'd be open to that, absolutely.
Could you repeat your blog one more time, please?
HTTPS, www.erinscookinginthedark.wordpress.com.
Erin's Cooking in the Dark. Well, it's absolutely marvelous having you on the show. Have you decided when your next recital is going to be?
I have not done any solo things lately, but I have done lots of choral things. Our season for Voices of Canton, which I'm a member, will be coming up very soon. We'll be having lots of concerts. Generally we have from October, we have a holiday one in December, and generally some spring stuff.
And Voices of Canton is also on the internet and the phone book if people have.
Absolutely. They have a website. It's voicesofcanton.org.
Okay. You've been tuned into Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning, someone who's not afraid, someone who speaks out, Erin Byrne, who is an advocate for folks with the disabled, as well as being a teacher, a singer, and a tutor. On behalf of Forum 360, I thank you for being here today, Erin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of Forum 360, I'm Sally Henning.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Acronist.com, Hudson Cable, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.